All right, welcome everybody. Iowa Genealogical Society's Ancestry Special Interest Group. Welcome. Today we're going to go over some whatever's new in the collections. We're going to spend a little bit of time with that. And then today's topic is going to be the extra services that they offer. So Claudia was just talking about the all access account, which gives you access to newspapers.com and Fold 3. We're going to talk about those as either individual subscriptions or with Ancestry, as well as Find a Grave, because Ancestry owns all three of those services. So that's our main topic for today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move you guys out of the way so I can share my screen. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to move the controls out of the way so I can click on the site. Get it just right. There we go. All right, perfect. Oh, and I've clicked on something I don't want to do. Oh, perfect. Okay, now we're good to go. So one of the things we're going to talk about, I've already logged in because I use two-factor and that just takes more time, is we're going to talk about through the new collections. So the other thing that's new with Ancestry, for those of you that have done your DNA, is the new ethnicity results are out. They were out the couple days after the DNA SIG group. So next month, the DNA SIG is going to deep dive into all of the new stuff that Ancestry's rolled out with the DNA stuff. But to look at the collections today, let's start. You know me, I like to scroll down this right panel and go to new and updated collections right there. And I gave you some highlights in the handout. So let's work our way through those. The first one's going to be on new collections. You know, they've got these tags here that stay for 45 days from is it 45 days or 90? I think it's 90 days from the day they roll out either the update or the new tag. So that tag stays on there. And we have a date here of when this was released. So I'm going to start with the Revolutionary War Burial Index. Now, I'm going to right click and open in a new tab so I can keep my list there so we don't have to keep digging for that. And just know that because it's an index, it's not going to necessarily, we're not going to have access to the images themselves. So if you can see here in the browse, it's sorted by surname groups. If we scroll down to the bottom, we get a little bit of information about where this came from. This is burial information of veterans who died between 1775 and 1875. And you can see here down at the bottom how they got the collection put together and the bibliography of where this stuff came from. So these aren't the actual original records, but I'm just going to do a quick search here for coffin. You know, my coffins were here from pre-colonial times. I'm just going to do a search on surname. Just wanted to open this up and let you guys have a peek at what is there. So you can see there is an image. Now remember, this is an index, so let's take a peek here at what we got. Now I want to look at William Coffin. I can hover here, and I can see from this hover that they've transcribed information that looks like it's on an index card. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's look at the image. And it's going to open up for us. And you can see it's some kind of a burial card record. I'm going to close. And you can see they're all, looks like, you know, those little dots. Remember library card catalogs? They had that stick that ran through the length of the drawer. That's my suspicion of what these are. So that was in some kind of a drawer. You can see that he was buried in North Carolina in Guilford County or township or city. Since I have family in that area, there's all of those. We have a birth and death date. There's service and additional facts. And here's the call number for whatever the original record was. So we'll go back and take a peek at that. If I go to the next card, Do I get the back of it? No, I get the next person's card. So even though this card is for George Coffinberry, he was buried in Ohio, and you have a little bit of additional facts here. He was a private in the Virginia militia. His grave is marked by the Mary Washington DAR chapter in 1911, since he had died in 1851. So you can see that there's some information on these Revolutionary War veterans that have died. This is a burial index, but it gives you an opportunity to confirm a birth or death date and where you might find them in a cemetery. And here's the name of the cemetery on this one, and a little bit more information about them. So if you're just starting your military research for your ancestor, this collection could be of great help to you. So here's William. I'm going to go back one more. There's Tristram. This isn't he was a private in Major Thomas's company. For those of you that know, Revolutionary War service people didn't, it was militia. And so they recruited or enlisted in a particular officer's company. And so you get a little bit more information about how that might have worked from that perspective. If you look at the slideshow here, you can see, you can hover over and kind of make your way through the list, since they're alphabetical. Here's a Ruth, here's a woman, and you notice that, let's take a peek at hers. She aided struggling colonists with funds. So she's listed in the Revolutionary War Burial Index as being a contributor to the effort of freedom in the States. Okay, and if we go back to, let's see if I can get back to the actual index itself. Here's my search criteria. And if I just go to William's record again, not click on the image, we went and looked at the images, but if I just look at the index record in Ancestry, just a quick reminder that not only is the detail of the transcribed information off of the card, but I have a source idea here. So the index to burial records, the source information, you can see here's a description. The call numbers, I'm guessing, on the cards would be one of these books that was used to build this index. So you might be able to chase down the card itself and find the original record in another reference, if that's what you're looking for. So that's the Revolutionary War Index burial cards. There are images for these cards, but it's just a card. So it's been transcribed from something else, put on a card, made available. So, but if you're starting to look for your Revolutionary War people, this could be a place to either confirm what you found or a hint to find some more records. So good stuff. So the next one I want to take a peek at is the Providence, Rhode Island Dexter Asylum and Almshouse records. So, and that was opened, the records are from 1828 to 1956. So this was, if you have family that were in Rhode Island, you might be able to find them in here with, and I'm just going to show you a couple of records. If we can get this to open, well, hopefully everybody's out buying a new membership, so things might be, again, I'm going to use my coffins because they were in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island area for quite some time. So we'll see what we can find here. And this has a bit of variations in the type of records that there are. So you can see here, there's this James Coffins. He was discharged. So this is some kind of a discharge record. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on James, not my family, at least not with that spelling, but you never know what you're going to find. So this one, he was discharged Now, if it was an asylum and an almshouse, could just be the poorhouse. And you can see I have a discharge date, and he was in series 1, box number 4, but I have an image here. I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. So this is the documentation from the overseer of the poor. So this, you can see that this was part of this organization in 1873. He was among a list of people: Judd James, James Coffins, Carrie Burnell, and James Rogan were all discharged on the same day, and they were inmates at the asylum. So these are people that, knew each other. I don't know as if they were friends, but they were available. They were stayed in the Dexter Asylum together. So that's one of the records that you find in this collection. The other one I want to take a peek at is the George Coffin record. So here we've got just marked him as primary, no dates, no information. And what do we have here? Let's see. Now you're seeing they're calling this the state hospital. So even though this is the record for Providence, Rhode Island, the asylum almshouse, it says it was a death record at the state hospital. And if you drill into the image, some of these people you may not find. This may be the only official record you have of confirming a death date. So this is in a book. Grave numbers are listed. He's in grave 583. They don't have a birth date, but they know what day he died. His parents are unknown, and he was at the state hospital. So you can see here some of these people have parents listed, a wife. He was at the state infirmary. So this would be an alternative potentially for death certificates if you can't find them for Providence, Rhode Island area. So here's another set. You can see here that the title on this series, Sub-Series for Medical Records, Volume 25. So it's part of that understanding what you're looking at with the collection. This has a very different look and feel to it than we had with the discharge form. Looked like a little receipt out of a receipt book. So you've got some really different kinds of information in this particular collection that might help you find some of those bits and pieces for your ancestor when you start looking at some of these collections. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that. So the next one I want to take a look at is this Franklin County U.S. probate records from 1821 to 1945. I'm always intrigued on how these records how does Ancestry get their hands on these records, and how do they put them into a collection? So you can see there's a browse option, which would mean we have images, and you can see they're divided into estate case files, docket index, and a probate order book. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see these are processed by Franklin County, Indiana. They are from the court as they were going to inspect the wills. They give you some types of information of documents that are included and the kinds of information that you're going to be able to find here. So they kind of give you some tips here that can be used to help you find your ancestor's will. And you can see they are primarily historical records created by officials working in the Franklin County court system. And there's some bibliography there on the history of them. Indiana State Library, County Courthouse. So let's take a peek here. I had porters that ended up in Indiana. So we'll take a peek. Oh, shoot. Yep. And you can see we've got women, we've got men, we've got a doctor. If you hover, you can see the kinds of book. This one is volume 13. He's a creditor to the head of the record. You can see William Porter's record here. I will tell you that I started looking at this record. It says he's primary, but this is not the record. This is not the probate record for William Porter or John Porter. This is Elijah Montgomery. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up because this is the kind of stuff when you get into some of these court records, we know Ancestry has indexed everybody that's in the record. So it could be the primary person, in this case, Elijah Montgomery. I'm going to turn this slideshow thing on. You can see all the different documents that are here. I can tell you that I looked all the way through all the documents in this probate file, and they changed the administrators and they changed the executors over the course of 3 or 4 years, and I never did find William Porter in this file. And sometimes that's what you're going to have. But you're going to find it tells an interesting story because there was land and there was a dispute and they sold the land and they had surveys and they had assessors. So I mean, you know, it wasn't my family, but it was kind of fun to look through this probate record. But it let me, you know, I went through page by page trying to find where was William L. Porter in this file. He wasn't there. I couldn't find him. So just know it lists him as claimant. I could not find him on any of the inventory. So just be aware. Some of these, and this isn't just for this collection. If you're looking at probate records and will records, it's just hard sometimes to find, since Ancestry's given us that little hint that said he's in this file, but they don't, you know, we get so spoiled by so many of the collections where they highlight the name on the census page and we can go right to our person that we search for. But you get into some of these other, particularly court records, they don't do that. They don't take you to the page where he belongs. They don't have that level of sophistication in their indexing set up for some of these. And maybe they shouldn't. We need to, you know, get really comfortable with working through the research ourselves. So, but I think it's an interesting, you know, collection of, if you have family in Franklin County, that might have been there. It's a good place to take a peek. And then the last one I'm going to take a peek at is the U.S. home ownership records from 1920 to 1970. And I was intrigued with this one because it's like, okay, this is a new collection. Where did they get these records from and who might be in these records? So we're going to take a quick peek here. Index information of property transactions in the United States. So this is an index created from property transactions. The index is secondary historical source created from primary historic, you know, so we know this isn't the original, but for giggles and grins, I just put in my dad's name because he was a homeowner in 1970. And there's a lot of them, 944. But you can see here that I've got a property city. So this is kind of interesting. This is my aunt, Cora, lived in Conrad, Iowa, in Grundy County. So I go down through here and I can see, okay, here's Cora again. Now, my dad is a Marvin. So I don't have any other information there than Marvin Katzer. I didn't do a search. I didn't narrow it to Iowa. I didn't narrow it to anything, but as this paints up, this could be my dad. 78,500. Their first house was really small, but I don't have any other information than this. So to me, even though this is my dad's name and it might be the price he paid for his house, I don't have any other information that would make it confirmed for me that that's my dad's record, okay? But if I go back to, let's take a peek at one of Cora's records. because we've got a little more information. We've got a town here. So I know that that's my cousin. A sidebar, she's my dad's first cousin, so my first cousin once removed. She was a coach in the Waterloo School District and came back home to Conrad. Here's an address, property address or mailing address, and a price she paid for her home. So those of you that know Conrad, it's a little dinky town. She came back to Conrad after school was out in Waterloo and taught swimming lessons at the pool in Conrad, which is where I learned how to swim from my cousin. So a little side note there. But this is what these records look like. There's no images. It's just an index to say this person at this place owned a piece of property. There's a land transaction somewhere for that. So you'd have to go to the Conrad, Grundy County Courthouse to find out, did she pay her taxes? When did she buy the house? We don't have a lot of information here, but it might be that hint that you need to find the place where your ancestor might have lived. So that could be a really fun collection to take a peek at. So any questions about the new records before we dive into the updated records? So the updated records, I want to take a peek at Texas U.S. land abstracts. And title abstracts. And you know, in land transaction, abstract means something different than when we transcribe or abstract out a printed document. So life gets a little complicated there when you're dealing with land transactions. And I've got some CATSers that we went to Texas. So let's just do CATSer there and see what these records tell us. Now this is a collection that's been there, but it's been recently updated for some reason. So what you can figure out is maybe you've got that list of search of collections that you want to go look at again if they're going to be updated. And you'll notice right here, I have no CATSers. It brought me back the closest names to the name I asked for. So in this particular record, there aren't any CATSers, but if I hover here, you can see the kinds of information that are available in these land abstracts. A residence date, a place, adjoining county, certificate numbers, how many acres they had, adjoining acres. You can see that there was a survey, the class, the patentee, and I always have to look that up on land transactions. Who is the patent holder and where is that information stored? So I can't tell you that right off the top of my head. If somebody here's really up to speed on patentees and patentors, open up your mic and share with us. But if you've got family that lived in Texas in this period or owned land, so if we think about, you know, the kind of westward expansion that we had, you might be able to find a record of their land holding in this title abstract index. But again, you'll see there's no images. It's just that transcribed record, but it gives you enough information that you could go find it. You could find the county, you could find the land records, depending on how they had acquired those. So this is kind of a interesting record there for U.S. land title abstracts. So let's take another look at an updated one. Go ahead.
This price, if in a city, it very well could have been a city directory or a Sanborn map might have shown those. The rural ones are sometimes more difficult to get, but those are a couple of sources that I found useful.
Yeah. Thank you, Bryce. Let's take a peek at Pennsylvania U.S. veteran cards. Now, this is 1775, so this goes back to the Revolution through World War II. So I'm just going to open that up. Now, this is an updated list. It always fascinates me how some of these can be updated in this time frame. I'm just going to pull down here to look at the sometimes on an updated, they'll tell us here at the bottom how many new records were added, or what they had done to it to make it find, make you find it. The records were prepared to serve as an index for the book History of the Pennsylvania Volunteers. So that gives you a sense of the original source for this collection. Now, it was published in 1869, and this collection goes up through 1948. So these are veterans cards that have apparently persisted. Because we have a browse here, we know there are images, and you can see, oh, maybe I know which conflict my Pennsylvania veteran was from, so I might want to browse through the different pieces of this collection so you can see what they have. So there's some World War I service medal application cards, there's Mexican border campaign veterans cards, militia index, officer index cards, kind of all over the place right there. So I'm still trying to find Craig's immigrant ancestor on the Snodgrass side. And I know some of them landed in Pennsylvania. So I have 114 Snodgrasses that are in this file. Not a lot, but if I wanted to, I could work my way through all of them. Are they all on this one page? Nope. So they're 52 a page. They're going to be in 3 pages. But what caught my eye was Mrs. William Snodgrass. So let's take a peek at this card here for her. So why is she in this index card? And her spouse was William L. Snodgrass. Okay, I don't need to look at all of the cards. There's some backs. You can see there's a back on this one. So we'll take a peek at that. So he has the Mexican Service Medal. This was from the Mexican Emergency Call of the President in 1916. He was married. She is in the index because she's listed as the emergency notification record. But you get a lot of great information here. He was 27, 5'11". You get a description of him, what his job was, where he lived, the date of his commission. He was accepted. And then if you can read all of this military abbreviation, you can see where he was and when he was honorably discharged. And there's a note here that says, character, excellent service, honest and faithful. The soldier was due for clothing not drawn $20.71. Prior service turned me over. And they did image the backside. One enlistment, U.S. Navy, March 17 through 08. 17 would have been 1908 to March 16, 1912. So you get a lot of great information on these cards in the veterans campaign cards. So if you've got veterans that were serving from Pennsylvania, you might want to take a quick peek at the updates on these and see maybe your people are there. And the fact that this one is typed is fabulous. Us genealogists, there's so little that inspires us sometimes. It's the it's the simple things, right? A record that's typed or somebody that's got beautiful handwriting. We always get excited about those kinds of things, don't we? So this one we're going to take a look at is the Virginia US Newspapers.com Stories and Event Index. And this is something we're going to cover today as part of our newspapers.com, but I wanted to kind of give you a preview here. So this is a collection that Ancestry has put together for Virginia. As they've gone through their newspapers they have on file in their collection, they've created this index of stories and events. And you can see here, it's got the newspapers.com logo here. This collection, the facts are made available on newspapers.com. So we're going to take a quick peek. I have an all access account. So this will give you a sense of, a little bit of what we're going to cover, a little more detail later. But this is the index. comes up just like any other Ancestry collection. You get a topic, you get a name, you get a residence place, and a residence date. So remember, we're in the Virginia section. Or Ancestry has created these stories and events indexes for all the states. I mean, they have a big global one, but you can narrow it down if you want to. And what we're going to take a peek at here, I just wanted to, just pick one. Let's look at Margaret Law and Justice, see if we can see what that's about. And I'm going to take a little bit of time here. I'm going to walk you through. So this is potentially a hint. If this was in your hint list, or you had gone into one of these newspapers.com index collections, this is what you'll see. They've transcribed a little bit of information from the newspaper. You get to view, they give you a picture of the story. And what it's going to do when I click on that, it's going to take me straight over to newspapers.com. Now, newspapers.com is a subscription service. If you have your own subscription, you can sign in with your subscription. Or if you have, you can sign in with Ancestry, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do. And it's going to bring over my login credentials from Ancestry, because I'm coming at it from Ancestry into newspapers.com. And it's going to take me to that page where that clipping has been identified. And so you can see it's this article right here. You see it's already got a border around it. And it says many cases disposed of on the first day of the Hustings Court December term. So you can read down through here and you can see now in Margaret should be highlighted. So we'll just keep on going down through here, this article, till we find there's Margaret. So Roanoke Cold Storage Company versus Yeager, judgment on the amount of the note. You can work backwards from Margaret, and you can see there's an A.L. Jameson versus Joseph G. Williams, judgment in the amount of the note. Oh, and this one, the last one on the page, she had filed against Garland Marable, judgment for the amount of the note. That's all we know. So if this is something that you wanted to add to your Margaret in your tree, you could say, you could print and save this. You can download it. You can clip the whole article. We've got a source here, so you can choose some options on the sources. But let's just say I wanted to save it to Ancestry. So I click Save to Ancestry, and I could give the clip a title. I can add a tag to it. You can see I have some controls on how it's going to show up on my Ancestry account. And if I say Save to Ancestry, it's going to give me a little pop-up here that's going to let me say, kind of like you can with other hints, as you look through hints on Ancestry, which tree do I want to put her in? Maybe she's in my snodgrass tree, and I could look for Margaret in my tree, and it's going to attach this article with this reference to that person in my tree. Okay, so I could say save, or I can say cancel. So just kind of wanted you to walk through a little bit of what this looks like. You can always, my recommendation is, and we'll talk about this a couple times today, is print and or download anything you find on newspapers.com. So even if you come in on a free trial or a free weekend, they've opened up a certain group of newspapers for a free weekend, your access isn't going to always be there. And the ability of Ancestry to have the license to display those pages, newspaper pages, sometimes goes away based on their licensing agreement. So you want to grab what you can and save it, to your computer so that you have it, and then you can still attach it to your tree. If you have the all access account through Ancestry subscription, and you attach it to your tree, the current rules are, if your all access subscription expires, you will still be able to see that image on your tree because you attached it when you had paid access. Now, will they keep that forever? Who knows? But anyway, I just wanted you to see if I go from a hint or a record you found in an index collection and how that works. It just seamlessly moves you over to that. We will see the same thing for fold 3 as we go through the fold 3 stuff today, as well as find a grave. So just this behavior that you're seeing here is consistent from Ancestry through the other collections that they own. So I just wanted you to be able to see that, how that works. And then the last one I want to go through here on the, excuse me, the updated ones is the obituary collection. Open that in a new tab. And this is one that gets, updated on a fairly regular basis. The source for this is online obituaries. You can see that it's the Ancestry's obituary collection, historical newspapers. Down here, you can see at the bottom. Now, they didn't update it for this most recent update, but you can see they've added so many new records from hundreds of newspapers. So mostly they've gotten more newspapers into their collection, and they're adding those obituaries into the obituary collection here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look up my book from my dad, because I usually can find him in the in the collections. And he's a relatively recent, he passed in 2018. So you can see here right at the top, it was published in Marshalltown, in Des Moines. Betty's my mom, Eric and Kurt are my brother. So I know that these records are my dad. And you can see there's a couple more here that probably aren't my dad, because we wouldn't have published them in Harlan or Council Bluffs. But if I just pick one, you can see here it just gives me a gender and a sibling. That's accurate. Here's more information. So if I go ahead and click on this one, these obituary records can be full of wonderful hints and information that were in the obituary. You can see this is just an index. I don't have an image, but I've got transcribed information, lists the kids, lists his siblings and his parents, where he died, from this page here. And you can see from suggested records, remember this is Ancestry has put this collection together. Here's a find a grave record. Here's the U.S. newspaper obituary index. So it's a different obituary index. There's two separate collections. Here's the cemetery and funeral home collection. So you can see here's birth index. You can see where they're suggesting my dad might also show up in other collections that Ancestry has put together. And that has been indexed for that. So I just wanted you to see how I'm not in his profile. I'm not looking at the hints page. I came in through a collection, but I have these other suggestions. So if you're chasing down a particular ancestor and you open this up and you go, this isn't my guy. Maybe your ancestor with the same name is in one of these alternative collections, and you don't have to go back to a big major search. You can just jump from here. Again, you can right click and open these in a new tab so you don't lose your place, and you can still see that that's the right person. Now I happen to tell from this little skeleton image here, this is my dad's obituary because that was the picture that we used. Okay, so that, it gives you that way to peek into some of these collections to find potentially the ancestor that you're looking for or the relative that you're looking for. So there's that. Any questions about the collections? Okay. Just a quick reminder, I gave you in the handout, the conference is Saturday. I gotta think about this. If you haven't registered for the conference, it's going to be, our speaker is on Zoom only, so there will be some gathering at the library if you want to be in person and have lunch and do all of that. They are also opening up a jewelry sale. If you missed the one we had in the spring, we had some leftover jewelry that's going to be put out for sale. If you want to peruse through, holiday season is coming, so you might want to look for some gifts for yourself or other family members. So that's going on. All of the registration links are on the website for that later. And then following that, I didn't put it in it's going to be the annual meeting. So if you want to get in on the annual meeting, there's some information about the link for that is going to be there as well. And then the rest of the year, we've got a slumber party coming. For those of you that have done that, you get kind of locked into the library. There'll be a program, there'll be supper, I think it's pizza, I don't know. And you can research through your heart's desire through both. We offer Ancestry, Family Search Affiliate Library. We also have MyHeritage for the members only, and we've opened up the newspaperarchives.com is now available for members. You don't have to be at the library for that, but if you're at the library, you might as well use their Wi-Fi. And then we've got classes on Cherokee Indian Reservation research, tracing your history through the Des Moines High School records. Ports of Call is coming up in November, and then the holiday party in December. So that's what's coming up for IGS. So I kind of shared a little bit about what we're doing today. So today we're going to look at newspapers.com. We're going to look at Fold 3, and we're going to look at Find a Grave, because Ancestry owns all of them. They interact with them a little differently. They were existing businesses before Ancestry acquired them. And so with that, they have a little bit of a little different look and feel. So let's take a jump over. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, this Bryce, could I add just one thing with regard to the names of cities? And what, like your relative, nobody was in Harlan or whatever it may be. They often pick up the city from people who were either relatives of or maybe attended a funeral. And so I may see in Oakley and I say, well, they were never in Sioux City, but there may be one of the relatives of the decedent who is there, and they'll put in that place name, and it may have been published in that relative's hometown newspaper. So sometimes you have to maybe make one more click to find out
let's
if
just
that
take a
happens to
quick,
be the case.
yeah. So I've got the obituary collection here. Let's just hover over that. Now, see here, we've got siblings are Roman Charles. That's not my dad. But if down here, Roman Charles. So there's another Marvin Katzer running around Iowa. Now, there's been a theory in the family that we're all related somehow. I haven't delved into that to figure that out, but thanks, Bryce, because you're right. Those could have been additional people, and it's pretty easy with the way the Ancestry manages this. You can just hover and say, not my guy I'm looking for today, right? From that perspective. But thank you for that. So let's jump into newspapers.com. Now this, if you're not signed in, this is what the homepage looks like. There is a lot of information here that you can kind of see. You can explore by location. They offer a 7-day free trial, but I just wanted to take a peek here and let you see what happens if you're not signed in. Well, I'm currently signed in, so let me sign out so you guys can see how this really works. Because the free stuff, if I put in a surname here, and I did Katzer before, it will bring me over to this page here, and it will tell me how many Katzers it has found in the whole of newspapers.com collection. and you can see that they're sorted by location. So if you're thinking about a subscription to newspapers.com, you don't have one yet, this would be a way for you to do some exploring through the collection to say, is it worth me signing up? Okay, so you can play in this space here. Let's just pick Kentucky 441. And if I click on that hyperlink, what does newspapers.com give me? It wants me to sign up or register. Okay, so it's not, you know, you get a little bit of a peek in behind the curtain without having to pay for anything. So I just wanted you to know that that's how newspapers.com works. There's also another, let me go back to the home page. So that was just using the little search bar across the top of the home page. Using this little search bar right here. But if I go over here to search, and I do the same thing, I get a little different view. And so it might be more helpful for if you guys are more of a visual learner. You can see here, it's laid out a little differently. And there's this location bar here, which is going to pop up a map. We can get it to paint. So this, my recent search is still here, but you can see that I can look at, this is how many recent searches. So you can kind of see they kind of give you some more information by just clicking around. And then it takes us back here, and then it's going to take you to, now this is just generically by county population of record, people that are there. This didn't bring my search forward, okay? So just kind of keep an eye on the numbers to say, okay, in this list, there were 441, but now I'm in something completely different. But you can navigate around a little bit by just coming to newspapers.com and playing around with the free trial. Now, the free trial will require a credit card. And if you don't cancel it before the end of the 7 days, they will charge you for the basic annual program, which is, I forget, it's like $7.95 a month. You know, you can click on the try here. I wanted you to have that comparison between the different account choices with different plan choices, because they have levels here. So you don't get access to everything. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and continue with Ancestry. They didn't get me into the same pages, so. But in the handout, I gave you a little chart that lets you compare the basic to the premium, just so that you know. Now, the All Access Ancestry program is the publisher extra. It's the high level view. So you get all of the papers, all of the pages, access to combine both back and forth. So it kind of just depends on what you want to do. I don't know if you do a 7-day trial and cancel it and come back in 3 months and try to do another 7-day trial, if they'll catch you. If you have more than one email address, I'm guessing you'd be fine for a while. But that would be a way to do that. Okay, so I just want to step back here to this view here of where did we go? So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go back to my tree. I just want to show you how you're going to find some of this stuff. Okay. So so we've gone into newspapers through a collection where I found a record that I wanted to look at because I was on a newspapers.com collection. But let's say you're going through it the other way, okay? And you're in your tree and you've got a hint, and I got a little hint here on Rudolph, and I'm going to go from my tree and I'm going to look at Rudolph's hints. So I'm just going to click on that hint button. It's going to bring me to his profile. And I'm in the, you can see I'm in the hints tab. And I can scroll down here. And I've got stories at the top. And I've got other people's trees. And I've got land records. And I've got the U.S. index to death records. And here at the bottom, I have this U.S. newspapers marriage index. So remember that they create a whole bunch of these separate collections as indexes from newspapers.com. So they do births, they do marriages, they do obituaries. We've already looked at the U.S. Obituary collection that was kind of separate. And they also do the stories and events index. And there's a separate collection called the auction of enslaved people and bounties for freedom seekers index. So they've taken that group of newspaper articles and created its own index for those that are looking for their ancestors in that enslaved period. It makes it a little nicer, but you can see here that I've got Judge Rudolph Opliger in Columbus with his spouse. So I'm just going to click on this hint, and I'm going to click on the index record right here so that I go to that traditional index record. And we're going to follow the same path. This tells me this is over in newspapers.com. And it's going to tell me that in 1909, they were in Columbus, Nebraska. And here's what, I'm just going to click on this view. Again, it's going to open me up. I'm surprised it's going to make me sign in, and I have found this to be pretty much consistent. Sometimes it takes me straight in because I'm already signed in Ancestry, and sometimes it asks me to sign in. And there you go. So interestingly enough, my great-grandfather was not a judge, but the first name in the article is Judge. So this was marriage licenses by the judge to, and you'll notice that the index record said Rudolph Opliger and his spouse was going to be Cora Hines, but that's not what the article says. Levi and Cora from Cedar Rapids, and Rudolph and Louisa Lamp, which is wrong, it's Lemp, L-E-M-P, of Duncan. So this is my great-grandfather's marriage license record. This is from the Columbus Telegram in 1909. And, you know, this was a piece of information that I'm going to save to Ancestry. And I can keep the whole article. And I'm just going to put in here marriage license of published in paper. And this is the only thing I'm going to, and you have to spell license, right? So there we go. And I could put a tag on it if I want to. I'm going to say save to Ancestry. So the index record was wrong, right? And I'm going to say, I picked him from the list. So I'm going to say save. I mean, Ancestry has made this about as easy as you want. So it says it saved this record to Ancestry on Rudolph's profile, and it gave the title that I put in and the date and the newspaper. And if I want a different description here, maybe I want to put in the Columbus Telegram. And I've got save it to the life story, and you guys know how that is on the profile. I'm going to say save. So what it did is I've added a fact. So it attached the image to his profile in the gallery, but by adding the fact, I created a fact for it. So it says you can view the details over here on his profile. So we're going to go back over to his profile and we're going to see what it did to it. So you may want it to be doing something different. So you can see right here, it's added it in my other sources, right? And it's created this fact that I called marriage license published in the paper. I didn't add it to the marriage fact, but it just created a separate fact for it. So that's what it looks like. If you don't like that, you can edit this. You can change the, different bits and pieces. You can see I've got other newspaper articles already attached to him from 1927. And here's from the obituary index record. And here's the Evening State Journal. So there's some other articles I've already attached to Rudolph. So if I wanted to, I can go back and look at hints. Maybe there's something else I want to do there. Now, because of the way I did that, because I went into the hint and then I went to Ancestry smart enough to say, I already dealt with that marriage hint. See, now I've got more hints in here. So this is the marriage hint. I'm not going to keep this because Cora's not right. So I'm going to ignore the hint. But I went and got what I wanted. So I went and looked at the original article. He's listed there with the correct wife. It's not Cora. So I'm going to say ignore that hint. And I'm going to say the relationships are wrong. And I already have this information because I already saved the article. So that's my note to me in the future that if I wanted to say, why didn't I keep that? Well, I did keep it. I just didn't keep that hint. Okay. So that gives you a sense of how this works through these. So you can see the different collections show up as hints from newspapers.com. I can go out and work through them, right? Because I can about guess that this was the birth index for additional children of Rudolph's, because these are his kids, Lawrence and Fred. And this is a story about Mrs. Well, let's, this is, you just kind of work your way through these hints. And I'm going to go look at it from here. So it's going to take me straight over to newspapers.com in that same tab that I'm already in. And Ancestry keeps track of all those tabs. You don't have to stress over keeping them straight at all. And it's going to bring me to this article in the Columbus Journal in 1895. And this is a list. This is an obituary record. So not a stories or an event, but it's her obituary record. And she leaves a husband and 5 children. And that's just the basic information. Now, I'm not going to futz with this right now because I have 2 Rudolph obligors, a father and a son. So I don't know which Mrs. Obliger this is. I know the date this was in the paper, so I can go check my records and figure out which one do I want to put this to, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just wanted to show you the process of, do I want this little snippet from the paper? Maybe I don't. And because I'm not going to futz with it right now, that hint will stay under Rudolph's page and I can deal with it at another time. So I don't have to overthink that part of it. Okay. Any questions about newspapers.com or how Ancestry puts them together? Now you can do this same thing if you're on a free trial or if you've paid for a newspapers.com separate. You can still say save to Ancestry. It will prompt you to log into your Ancestry account. regardless of what kind of account you have. If you have a free guest account or if you have a paid subscription, it doesn't matter. But the process is exactly the same. Newspapers.com, you will log into your account. And then when you want to save it to your tree, you just click the Save to Ancestry tree and then log into Ancestry and it will connect the dots. Okay. And then you can pick which tree and you can pick which person and you can attach it over there. Again, you might want to download it to save it to your computer just in case. Because depending on how your subscription is and how your access is. Now, because you attached it from a paid newspapers.com subscription, but Ancestry doesn't know necessarily that you've done that. And so you may lose access to the image if it wasn't through the all access account. They've changed that fairly recently, and I'm a little fuzzy on what they're really doing there. So just so you know. All right, let's move on to, I'm going to close some of these newspaper tabs. And we're going to go look at Fold 3. So Fold 3 is another site that Ancestry bought. You can see the nomenclature here says Fold 3 by Ancestry. This is, I'm not signed in. They also offer a 7-day free trial. And theirs is a little more straightforward. They have either free or premium. So they don't have that extra layer that newspapers.com has that eliminates your access to certain newspapers. But there's a lot you can do without even signing in here. So even though I could do a search right here, let me scroll down here a little bit. Let me refresh this page, because this is kind of their look and feel is very different, because they have, well, these usually have pictures in them. I don't know what's going on. They have these little cards for each of the conflicts. Because remember, Fold 3 is primarily a military collection. They have other stuff besides military, but it's not just US. You can see here with these tabs, they do Australia, Canada, New Zealand right up front here. So if I click on Australia, I get World War I, World War II. I get, I don't know quite why my pictures aren't painting, but you can also see all publications. So you can navigate through a lot of the records just on this page. And you can get, you can get a peek if you go to search and browse. So I'm still in the page, not logged in. And you can see here, the first filter it says is United States of America. So I'm going to turn that off. So I just want to walk you through. This is a filter page for searching and browsing. And so you've got a filter. You can set by date. You can set by type of date. You can set by keywords. You can set by all kinds of branches if you just do the drop down on filter. But let's say you're looking for Korean War, just for giggles and grins. We're going to do a Korean War, and I just want United States. So I'm going to click on filtering by Korean War in United States. And you see the type of results I'm getting here. I'm getting military books. I'm getting all kinds of stuff here. And you can see the kinds of conflicts. There's just a bunch of information that you get. But what if I put in Marvin Katzer right here? So I put in a name. That's my keyword. And now I get a thumbnail for Marvin Katzer's. And if I click on that, what will it tell me? Remember, I'm not signed into anything. It comes up with start my free trial. So I close that. It says verify that you're a human. So I close the free trial bit, and now it's off doing something else. So we're just going to play the game here a little bit. So I just want you to know that if this is how you come in, this is what you're going to deal with. do, do. Oh,
Do you,
they verified that I'm human. What was the question?
do you know if it has anything on the military academies?
I believe it does. So we'll take a peek at that. But you can see I have a little bit of an image of the card, right? This is a multi-image file. If I click on Dad's name, I'm still in the free space. So I see they have an image for his Korean draft card. And I'm back here to, yeah, you need to have permission. But now what they've painted for me is the back of the card. So I still can't look at it very good, but I know what I'm going to get. I've got 2 pages here. So that's one of the things that's really interesting. So I'm going to take Dad's name out. I'm going to take Korea out. And let's just look down through this panel here, this other filter. So I can go by conflict. You can see they have a see all. And they have a see all. And then here they have non-military. This is the title collection. If I say see all, I now can get this list of all of these other, the way the collections are organized. Now, I will tell you, it is really hard to get, they don't have like a card catalog over here. So you can see they have naturalizations and they have city directories and they have Native American and they have Holocaust and they have unit histories. And that's just the way that organized they are organized. So this is title collection. So you have to, pick one of these. So I'm going to just say that's done. And then I get down here to publication names. So they have the 1930 federal census and they have the death index. And again, if I click all, remember, I'm still on the free page. I haven't signed into anything, but I can peruse through this site like crazy. So I get hospital records, Civil War stories. Let's put in academy. You have to be able to spell it. There. So here's under academy, I've got military cadet application papers only for this little over a century. So that gives us a sense that, if you're looking particularly for historical family members, you might be able to, and just for giggles and grins, let's click on that to say that's the one I want to look at. I'm going to say done. And now it's brought me up the information that's from National Archives. And you can see these don't have names on them because that's what here's a child record, cadet application papers. So let's say I want to go to, yeah, that's fine. Page 12, page 11. So they're showing me some information about what's in this collection, even though I don't have let's look at this letter thing here. I'm not allowed to view this child record.
did Cherry freeze and go away, or
Yeah, I don't, I'm not getting anything.
I'm not getting anything from Sherry now either.
No. On that, we'll wait until she comes back. On that military academy, once she had brought that up, then if you go just to the right, you could put a name in there and they will search for a name, Ginny, within that particular, what am I trying to say? Collection. So, I mean, you don't have to read them all. So
Great.
that would be interesting to see.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is they do have free collections that are free all the time. And one of them is the 1812 pension records, which are just about done. So if you have somebody that's in the 1812 census, or in 1812 war, you can see their pension records. And that was an agreement they made with, I think it was funded by the Federation of Genealogical Societies. So those are free. They have some other free ones, but they don't make them real easy to find. There she comes, I bet. Is she coming in?
Not for me.
Mm-mm.
So when did they do those pensions? Was it a act of Congress or?
Oh, yeah, it was after Congress. They waited a long, long time before they
Okay, that's what I
before they
thought.
did them. So the longer they waited, the fewer recipients there were that they could possibly claim. So that's it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. See what happens. I am now host. Oh, lovely.
Right.
Okay.
I think I don't know if she's rebooting or what.
Yeah, she'll probably come back in. I don't
So
know.
yeah, so in the 1812 they did like they got some land.
They got bounty land. So they got the bounty
Bounty
land
Was that
right
in the
away.
pensions? Was that in
Yeah.
so
And-
that wasn't part of the pension thing?
No, but and if I remember correctly, you could get a pension or you could get the bounty land. I don't know. It was very complicated, so I kind of gave up. While we're waiting for her, I do want to talk about the newspaper archives, which now are available to you. And they are done by a company out of Cedar Rapids there's two companies out of Cedar Rapids. One is the Advantage Preservation, the other is Newspaper Archives. And they had a contract with the state of Iowa to microfilm all the newspapers that came into the state historical. And so now they have taken those and they have scanned them and digitized them. So it's got a really strong Iowa collection, but it's got other ones too. And it has some international, okay? But to access them, you can do it at home, but you have to go in. Here she comes.
Here she comes.
Here she comes. You have to go in through the members only. And once you sign in, and they have a little thing there that tells you how to do it. Once you sign in with your username and your password, then you go over to tools and you'll see where you've seen newspaper archive or MyHeritage. You'll see newspaper archives in there too. And once you're in, you don't have to do anything else. So you don't have to do any other sign in. So that's it. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, guys. I got this pop-up that said Zoom was misbehaving, and then it just shut it completely down. So
We noticed that.
I was
Yeah.
glad you were in as IGS, Teresa, because I knew that everything would stay.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes things work out for the best. So I was just talking in just to fill in the time until you got. So I'm turning to you.
no worries. So anyway, where I left off is we were talking about places. So you can see here all of the places that Fold 3 supports. And if you pick one of those, you can go and see what records they have. And it could be kind of skinny, but I just think this is fabulous that you can do this perusing through the collection before you even sign in. You can look and see, do they have a document? Do they have an image? What kind of stuff do they have? So you can see all kinds of record types. And this is a way the collection, the filter is set up. So you can see if you want to just look by content provider. Now you see the National Archives has provided, but they have National Archives of the UK, and they have the Veterans Affair, and they have Fold 3 directly. So things that have been donated to Fold 3. So just wanted you to have this feel of how this works. So now I'm going to go back over to Ancestry, and we're going to close out. We're going to get out of root off here. We're going to go back to my tree. And I could have picked view in tree. Could have done that. But I'm going to go look at my dad's profile for hints, because I saw that he had a Korean draft card. So let's see if we can shut down pretty much everything else. So Ancestry must be busy.
While that's spinning, I noticed that the Korean ones I was looking at, they did them at college too. So you kind of get an idea where they were at in college.
So you can see here, this just says Korea era draft cards. This is the name of the collection. I don't have an image. I'm going to review this one. I'm going to see the details of this hint did not load. Try again. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this hint. I'm going to bring up that index record. And it's telling me right here, it's on Fold 3. So I'm going to go ahead and click on view this on Fold 3. And it brought me, because I'm signed in Ancestry. Yeah, I'm already signed in. So it still is nagging me a little bit because I have this other tab open. And so Fold 3 is trying to reconcile what's going on there. So I'm going to sign in with Ancestry. And it's spinning up here, so we're just going to let it do its thing. And your experience may vary. Okay, so here I get the image right here, and it tells me they've transcribed all the information about my dad. He was in college at, the Iowa State College at the time. And so he listed his home address, which is what you had to do. He's listed as single. And if I go to the next page, look down here, it's a little different than Ancestry. I can see the back, and his signature never really changed. That's kind of interesting. All right, so I've got 2 pages. It gives me an option to annotate it if I want to. I can connect it to a memorial. I'm just going to save this to Ancestry. So I'm going to save to Ancestry. And you're going to see it's going to be similar to what we saw on newspapers.com. It's going to give me my tree. And it's going to give me my dad. And it looks like it's only going to bring me page 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to the date of 1 March 1953, because that's the stamp here where he registered it. So I'm going to make that date. I'm going to say save to a person. I'm going to say save. And now if I want to, I can add a fact. So remember, it says I've saved it to Dad, but do I want to add it as a fact? And I'm going to say no, I'm not going to do that. But I've only got page 2, so I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to go back to page 1, and I'm going to save page 1. So here's page 1. Hello, Marvin. And I'm going to use the same date, March 1958. So I've saved 2
53.
images. Oh, well, I'll fix it later.
Yeah, okay.
So I've saved 2 images to the gallery attached to my dad, but I've not created a corresponding fact. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of that. So we're going to jump over to here to Ancestry, and we're going to go back to my dad's profile. So I'm just going to click on him on this little, rather than through the hint, I'm going to just click on his profile. So click on that little thing there. So, and you notice that I'm no longer in the hints tab, I'm in the facts tab. So it's trying to reconcile all the new stuff that I've done there. So school yearbooks, I've got, and I had already put his card in here, so I've got several, so I'll have to sort through these. But you can see here under other sources, so it wasn't from Ancestry, it was from another source, and it didn't create a fact. I had a fact here before, because it picked page 2, page 1. And so I can do edit. Let's see if I can fix this. Those could be the ones that I just saved. Nope, these were saved before. And I'm just gonna say card. Page 2. And you notice here I didn't update the date from before. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say save that. So even no matter what you did in newspapers.com or what you called it in Fold 3, as you bring it back over, you can clean it up. So, and at some point that'll refresh that page, that view there, and it'll be fixed. So I can see that I've got the images here. They're on his timeline. I can clean this up however I want to do that. So I just wanted to show you that from Fold 3, you can just pick and choose what you want and take it over. The interesting thing for me is Fold 3 knows who this is, but when I go to send it to Ancestry, they don't pre-populate that person's name. And I don't know why. I suppose because there's other names on this record, so maybe I want to save it to the spouse or somebody else. You know, they don't make this really easy from that perspective. Now this image is right here. Let's see if I can, there we go. So I could have gone, if I'd have done this view, page 1, page 2, you can see that there's other Katzers in this collection. This is Dad. This is Larry, and Paul follows Dad. When I did that, click on that. So I'm going to close out of that and go back to here. Now, the interesting thing is I have a share button and I have an actions button. So under actions, this is where you can add a tag or download it or print it or connect it to a memorial. And, you know, you can create a memorial on Fold 3 for your people. So you can put all of the records for that person together if you wanted to create a memorial. I'm not going to spend any time working on that today, but I just wanted you to know that this is where you can decide, I'm going to download this picture and I want the entire page, and do I want it as a PDF or a JPEG? So it's pretty straightforward, but just don't get panicked because it's in actions. It's not in a print or download button like they have on newspapers.com. So any questions about Fold 3? Bryce, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, my question is there any place in Fold 3 that sets the calendar delineations of drafts? For example, I didn't think that the Korean War started for the United States until June of 1950, and yet the bracketed dates are 1948 to 1959. Whatever it takes, I suppose, an act of Congress to say a war is over. It matters to those of us that are going around searching. about what draft system to look at. Are you aware of anything that delineates that?
I don't know that Fold 3 holds that information, but I think the description of some of that, how long did the draft run? That information, I think, is on the National Archives. So
Oh,
that's a
okay.
good question. So let's see if I can get back to home here.
I never
For
thought
some
about
reason,
that.
it's wanting me to sign back in, but we'll go back to home here. Oh, there's my pictures. Isn't that interesting? So if I go to the Korean War, so you can see here there's memorials. People have created a memorial for their family member. You can do that and add those records there. So here's the information that Fold 3 has about that particular conflict. It officially began in 1950. But to your point, I don't know if it says,
Yeah, I mean,
so it's interesting here, they make this notation about 1948 at the end of the war, the Korean Peninsula was divided into two parts and the US, yeah.
well, I didn't want to take up too much time, but
No, but I think it's interesting that somehow they've identified the draft range from the
Right.
time at the end of World War II till the end of the war. So I think that could be part of it. I don't have a good answer for you, Bryce.
Okay, thanks.
But this was a great question to show you that there's a lot of information provided here within each conflict. So if you come to it from the filter list or you come to it from the home page, I'm just going to do a back. And that took me to this one. And then I'm going to go back again, and that should take me to the home page. And you can see that there's all these. So I could click on Australia and see their participation in the world wars. I can click on Canada, get the other side of the War of 1812. New Zealand's participation. And of course, the United Kingdom has lots and lots of conflicts that they have information on. So,
Okay, thanks. I just thought there
No,
may be an easy
yeah.
place to know. Thanks.
no worries.
Sherry, when my husband was in the Air Force, he served 4 years active duty, and then he had another 2 years where he was subject to being called back up.
Yeah, Craig's dad was the same way. He served
So
in
I
World
wa-
War II and
I
had that.
wonder, since the war started in 1950, they could go back and see who was still eligible to be called back up in 1948.
Yeah.
And that might,
I would agree that that's part of it, Kathy, because that's the kind of the way we had Craig's dad's records look that way too. Is he was discharged at the end of World War II. He was put in the reserves, and then he was on a call-up list for Korea.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think there was, because it came so close behind.
yeah. I think we got caught unawares with World War II, and so they said we're not going to happen again. We're always going to have men that we can call up at the
Yeah.
last minute. So yeah.
Well, and you know they're trained, and you know what they're special. You know, they know how to fill in the ranks. Yeah, from that perspective. All right, any other questions on Fold 3? Because I do want to take a little bit of time, and we're going to go a little long today because I don't have a family tree maker group today. We're going to talk about Find a Grave. So on Find a Grave, this is the homepage for Find a Grave. It is totally free. It remains totally free. And it remains under the, even though Ancestry owns it, you notice it doesn't have the Find a Grave by Ancestry in the logo, and that's because it's still being managed by the original owners who set up the site, and for the most part, it's a volunteer site. So you can create your own account here so that you can go take pictures and post pictures from cemeteries. You can create a memorial for some of those people that you have a cemetery record for. There's just a lot of things that you could do from within the Find a Grave space. The basic default search is this bar right here. If you have captured in your records, the memorial number, you can get that under more search items. So everybody that has a profile or a memorial on Find a Grave gets assigned a number. And so you can search by that memorial ID number, or if you find one someplace in somebody else's records and you want to come and find it, you can do that here. So that's under the more search. The other thing, oh shoot, I went too far. There we go. The other thing that, you know, a lot of people, if you're like me, I started doing just
Okay.
the graves themselves. So we'll look at my dad again. And you don't need to put much else in there. And I'm just going to put in search. And I'll get a list of all the Marvin Katzers, so I can, I got sister M Genevieve Katzer because M and Marvin, you know, their search algorithm is a little different than Ancestry's because they try to help you find a search record. But I'm going to go ahead and click on my dad's record. And there's no grave photo. So this person, Genealogy Buff, is maintaining this memorial. A lot of these more current death records are someone is creating them based off of obituaries in the paper. So here's Dad's obituary. They've connected him to his parents and to his siblings that have passed. It's not complete, but I can look at this view source right here and say, who owns this memorial? And it's this person called Genealogy Buff. And it gives me a date when they added it. So he passed in January. You know, he passed about that time. Anyway, so they created the memorial. Here's the source citation for the memorial. If I wanted to, I could reach out to Genealogy Buff. I'm just going to click on this here. And Find a Grave's policy is, for the most part, is they will move the memorial ownership to a family member rather than someone. And you can see here, I put on memorials after they've died, which is a duplicate because someone may have been, you know, so he's just saying he's not a Find a Grave members yet. So, you know, it gives a little bit of information. It tells me how many memorials he's added, how many he's managing, how many photos he's taken, how long he's been participating. You can see they're not accepting any messages. So that makes it a little hard if I wanted to take back ownership of that memorial for me. But you can see a lot of information where this data would have come from that perspective. The other thing that's kind of interesting is I can, from this memorial, I can say, are there other Katzers in the same cemetery or in the same town or county or state or, you know, in Find a Grave as a whole. So I can quickly go and say, how many other Katzers are there in the cemetery where my dad is at? And there's 23. And I can tell you I'm related to all of them because this is a little country cemetery. It's kind of the family space from that perspective. And I can go look at each of these records if I wanted to, just from clicking on that cemetery. The other way to search within Find a Grave is by cemetery. So if you've got a cemetery, I can go to the cemetery and there's a cemetery search. So you can see I switched up here at the top from memorials to cemeteries. And now I can search for a cemetery. Well, and it gives me, you know, all this information about the cemetery and which ones are nearby and pictures about it. But if I go here and click on cemeteries, I can search for a cemetery. So let's say you've got a cemetery you've got a record of, or it was in an obituary, you don't know where it's at. You can just come to Find a Grave and search for the cemetery. I will tell you, it's not terribly interesting because they tend to paste them onto this cemetery's map. So let's just use Alice Cemetery again. And I'm going to say, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3 Alice cemeteries. I'm looking for the one in Conrad, Grundy County, Iowa. And I'm going to say search. And you see what they've done is they bring it down to, they put it on a map. Instead of just going to a list of the cemeteries, they put it on a map. And I don't know where it's at. You know, if it's a cemetery that you don't know where it's at, it's like you got to go through and click on all the pins. Now this one had an exact match, so I can click on this link here and go to the cemetery. And you can see there are 2 people have made requests for pictures. There's 563 memorials. 94% of the cemetery is been photographed. So it gives you a sense of the kinds of information that are there. But what's nice about a lot of these is if the cemetery's name has changed, or if it's one of those old little country cemeteries, you will get in the description also known as, right? Because your family may always call it the, you know, Grapevine Cemetery, but it's officially had its name changed and now you can't find it. So that's another way that you can take a peek at. Some of them have a really nice about description written up about them. This one doesn't happen to have that. So just wanted you to know that there's a way that you can search for people or you can search by cemeteries. Now, I have a separate Find a Grave account because I had been fairly active on Find a Grave before Ancestry bought them. So let's take a peek. If I go back here to hints, let's try this. And I'm going to go to my dad's hints. No, let's not go to dad's. No, I want to go to, yeah. I'm going to come over here to Rudolph's profile. Remember, we looked at him earlier. And I'm going to click on his Find a Grave index record right here. So this can come up in your hints, or you can find it by doing these suggested records, right? And I just want to show you how that connection with Ancestry works. So it's going to connect those dots for us. Close out a full 3. And you can see that we've got the logo for Find a Grave saying this is provided with an record information from Find a Grave. And it's still circling up here at the top. So it's still trying to find all the records for this index record. And this will give us some pretty good information because it brings that from Find a Grave together with Ancestry like it does on newspapers.com and Fold 3. And so you can come over, oh, we can get this. Should have clicked that a long time ago. While we're waiting for this, Bryce, I see your hand is up. Do you still have another question?
I had a suggestion when you're done with the cemetery thing concerning those records. I'll just wait till you're done, and at the end of that, I'll add a comment.
Okay, great. Super. So you can see the index record that Ancestry creates for this thing. It tells me that there's a biography on Find a Grave. That's what this yes means. And if I click this link here, it will take me to the Find a Grave record, or if I click on the picture, it will take me over to Find a Grave directly to his memorial. So I can see right here that all the information about him, and I know that there's a bio. So all that means is there's text in this space right here. When it says, is there a bio? Yes. That means someone has put information in here. And the contents of this, you saw the one from my dad, somebody had copied in the obituary. You will see obituaries. You will see just notes. Son of Rudolph, married to Louisa Lemp. Sometimes you get, I've got a couple of people that they've just put in like their genealogy research notes. here I found him in this census, and here I found him in this census. These are just can be an abundant of amazing information. Now, this bottom part here is someone has linked these family relationships to this. I always treat these as hints because I didn't do it, but it gives you the idea of who were his parents. And you can, I'm going to click and open in a new tab, his dad. I can go to his dad's memorial and see what information is there. So I get a picture of the grave site. I get a link to his mom and 2 other children, which should be listed here as siblings. So you can see these aren't super complete. So on Junior's profile, it shows 1 sibling, Ida. If I go to Dad's profile, I see Ida and Rudolph, the sibling that we just we're looking at. So there are more kids, but someone has only connected those 2 profiles. So that's, a piece of information. But if you're trying to piece people together and you don't know, these can be a wonderful way to say someone thinks these families are connected together. And I've made corrections to these because I had one where it was an uncle. They had connected his mother as his wife. And you just have to put in a request. You can suggest edits right here. You just click on suggest edits and then it goes out and you just tell them, I believe this is such and such, and here's why the dates don't line up and blah, blah, blah. And they will make the correction on the linkages. So they will straighten it out for you from that perspective. But you can see that I have a Save To button here. And this one is a little different. So I can create a virtual cemetery on Find a Grave. So let's say I have a family that I want to create a virtual military cemetery for all my family members. So I can create a virtual cemetery on Find a Grave where I can link all of my military family members, ancestors, and members into that virtual cemetery. Okay. And I can click, I can print it and I can save it to Ancestry. So this particular profile, I didn't come in through hints. I came through hints over on his son. But if I want to add it to Ancestry, I can click on that link here, even though I got to him from his son's profile. So I have the same thing here. You can see I have a little Ancestry explore more. So they're saying, hey, he might be in newspapers, or he might be in fold 3, or here's some more records on Ancestry, or learn more. This is all by Ancestry. So this is the little bitty piece that you get over here. But again, if I wanted to save this to Ancestry, I can click on Ancestry. I get a very similar look and feel that I've had on newspapers.com and fold 3. And I can pick, from my tree, I could say Rudolph, and it's going to ask me which one I have to go. It's this one, because I got to get the right one, right? And then I can attach this. Now I've already attached this to his profile, so I won't do this again. So I'm just going to cancel out of this. But you noticed when I clicked on that, it already knew I was already signed in on Ancestry. It didn't prompt me to sign in again. So if you come to Find a Grave separately and you're not logged into Ancestry, it's going to prompt you to sign in. I came to this profile, remember, from the suggested items list within Ancestry. So that link was still connected there. Okay. So there's that. The other thing I want to point out is if you want to add a flower, leave a flower, this is great for finding cousins that might be related to this ancestor, but it's through a different descendant than you are. So I kind of look at these people periodically on who left them, and you can put a comment. So sometimes you pick a person that right here it says, this is my 3rd great grandfather. or this says, this is my, great grand uncle. So when you leave a flower on the site, you can give a little more information, particularly when the names don't match. So there is a way to do that and use this as part of your cousin bait. Get click happy about it. I gave you in the handout a little walkthrough of how these work down here, but under, I'm gonna find it under about. Lost my handout. Under cemeteries. And in the handout, I gave you some ideas from another person who has created some virtual cemeteries, of how she organizes her memorials so that she can find them and keep track of them. So I wanted to let you do that. All right. Any questions about Find a Grave? I'm sure we've all gone out and played there, and I tend to treat the connections to parents and siblings and children and spouses as hints. But by the time you go and you click them all down and you see someone has posted the obituary, you have a pretty good sense of, is that in good shape? And you know that you need to go find the sources for those records from that perspective. So any questions about Find a Grave?
I have I will add the comment. This is Bryce.
Yep.
I'll add a comment. Two things. There is greater possibility of erroneous information. More and more cemeteries are being privately purchased or managed around the country, and I've had two experiences that are cautionary ones. That's why I passed them on. One was involved a member of the family in which twins were born. One was stillborn, one lived, and the stillborn one was put in a cemetery, and it ended up being privately owned eventually. And another apparent genealogist came and was doing genealogy, came there and told them, well, instead of baby boy X, and they provided a different name. In fact, they put the surviving twin's name in the record in that cemetery. And it created considerable issues, some of which I still had to deal with. So that's one thing. The other thing that I want to mention is that funeral homes frequently have information on relatives, and I had that experience here at Glendale Cemetery, in which I've got a relative buried at Woodland Cemetery in the Potter's Field, I might add. And that's a long story, but I asked Glendale, they gave me records. I said, well, who paid for it? Well, unfortunately, the funeral home had burned down and burned up all the records, but funeral homes can be the source of information as well, particularly in finding, in my case, on this relative, I thought he was married to the person that he died in Kansas City, was buried in Des Moines. That's unusual. And anyway, go to sometimes funeral home information will provide you with some missing links. That's my comment.
And I would totally agree with that. And there is a funeral home collection within Ancestry. And I don't know how much information, but it can give you a direction to which funeral home was used, particularly if the death certificate doesn't give it. Or if they find a cemetery that was listed on the death certificate, you find out they really weren't buried there, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those the offices in Des Moines where all the records are at Glendale is very convenient because
Very helpful.
yeah,
Very.
I have a cousin that does gravestone restorations. And so he was going through Laurel Hill where our family's all buried and noticed that our great grandmother had no death date. And so he thought, well, why doesn't she have a death date? So he went to the office and turned out that she was married to an African American man back in the 1950s. And when she died, she couldn't be buried next to him. because he was in the colored section. And
Yep.
so she was buried in an unmarked grave. And so he raised money, and just in May they had a ceremony where her gravestone was finally put on her actual grave.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
The other thing, because Bryce was talking about cemeteries in Des Moines, because I just did this, they have done a great job on the city cemeteries.
Yeah.
They have an index of all the burials that are registered. They also have, and if you look at that, then it tells you the block and the lot number. But then they also have very detailed maps of every cemetery, so that if you know it's block 10, lot 13, you can find that information and physically locate it within the cemetery, which is very, very nice. So I just enjoy that. The other thing is, if you have people buried from Des Moines, the genealogy library has quite a collection of funeral home records, which people have given us either permanently or at least temporarily. And they've been abstracted or copied. So, you always want to stop by and see what you can find there.
Let me add one thing
And
to
sometimes
that.
they put right here under the burial, there'll be a plot number if it's been provided. So
Sure.
you
Yeah.
can find the section of the cemetery or the actual plot number. So sometimes that's on Find a Grave too.
Mhm.
Let me add one thing to that, and that is that there's now a book out on the burials in Woodland Cemetery. So
Mhm.
historically, it's got names that you would recognize, street names and all of that. It's really an interesting book. Secondly, I've got, in fact, a good friend that is doing transcriptions, and you can use the QWERTY, the box, whatever you call those, and you can take your phone and take a picture of it, and it will tell you the history of that family that's buried there. It's
QR
really
codes, yeah.
very
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Yeah. Lisa, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I had a lot of luck between Find a Grave and I knew that most of my maternal grandmother's family came from the Bear Creek area over here west of Des Moines. And so I went to the cemetery. Well, I didn't go to the cemetery. I virtually went to the cemetery and just went through everybody in the cemetery, which was a Quaker cemetery. And pretty much anybody that had Barnett, and I just went through the network of names and who was listed as family and everything. Of course, still went through all the paperwork to try to prove that they were who they were related to, and works out, the family lines that the Barnetts and the Mendon houses, pretty much anybody in that cemetery was a relative. But so it added a lot of depth to that part of the family. There's now more Barnetts in the Lawton family than there are Lawtons. But it was a good source to go off of that I didn't find out in another place.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? This has been great sharing. Thanks for sticking with me with my technical difficulties today. I just clicked on my great grandmother. This was the spouse of Rudolph, and this is a completely different presentation than I've seen on Find a Grave before. So
Yeah,
apparently they're moving them around.
You didn't mention, but also there's on Find a Grave. If Find a Grave is actually the owner, is now the manager of the account. One of the things you'll see when you go to click on like make a suggestion, it'll ask you if you want to be the manager.
Yeah. It's just, there's just some really fun stuff that I think they've organized it really well. I can't directly compare it to Billion Graves, the other site, which is more international. But I have found that sometimes it's just really nice to be able to just click around and figure out how people are related and then see if it matches your paper trail. All right.
Sometimes it's fun to figure out why your relative is buried somewhere.
Yes. It is for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop stop the recording.